year in the junior division. The topic for today is, the more questions you ask, the more trouble you get into. Our judges for today are Mr. James, Mrs. Crispin, Ms. Mukherjee, and Mrs. Puntir. The order in which the four houses will be speaking today is Condon, Foy, Pal, and Allen. I would like to remind the speakers that they shall be given 3 minutes to express their views. After 2 minutes, a bell shall be rung, and after the 3rd minute, the second bell shall be rung. After a speaker has concluded his or her debate, members of the other teams are permitted to ask 2 questions. If they do not do so within 30 seconds, the speaker will be awarded full marks for rebuttal, so I do urge you to ask questions. Now, without further ado, I shall now call upon the first speaker, Anira Jwal of Condon House, to come and express her views for the motion.
Quote, "Speech is silver, but silence is golden." Unquote. Anonymous. Good afternoon to the House at large. I, Anira Jwal, stand here today debating in support of the topic under fire. The more questions you ask, the more trouble you get in. To begin with, my first constructive argument is that in a situation where someone doesn't want to talk or simply doesn't like talking about themselves, persistently asking questions might aggravate them, and they could slowly start to dislike hanging out with you. My second constructive argument states that asking questions might unintentionally make people think that you're intrusive and nosy. It could also imply that you have weak comprehending skills or lack basic knowledge in day-to-day activities. This makes people look down upon you like you're inferior. My third argument is that some people cope with their own problems by avoiding them. This leads to mental health issues, as these people don't know how to openly express themselves. This is because these people have been asking questions about others for so long. My fourth constructive argument is that teachers spend more than half of their day working, checking, teaching us, and explaining minute details. They get tired, and when students ask silly and unnecessary questions, they get frustrated, often taking out pent-up anger on the students. Trust me, teachers, I know that all of you have at least once gotten irritated by that one student who asks questions non-stop. As my last constructive argument, I would like to say that sometimes our teachers and parents don't tell us things as they think we might not understand it and take it in a wrong way. If we keep asking questions, they might break and inadvertently tell us something that might hurt us. For example, we all know Thomas Alva Edison. Had he asked his mother what the letter from his school actually said, he would have found out that he'd been expelled, and perhaps he would have gotten demotivated enough that we wouldn't have lights brightening the room or the spotlight bringing attention to me. Sometimes trusting is the best solution, whereas asking questions might ruin yours and your friend's mood, giving them the impression that you don't trust them. As I conclude my debate, I would like to request all of you to only ask the important questions, not the irrelevant questions. Remember, curiosity kills the cat. Thank you.
Thank you, Myra. Questions? House.
How can you say that people asking questions are nosy and intrusive?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Interjector. With the permission of the chair, I would like to answer. I think that sometimes people ask questions that might intrude in others' personal lives. This can make them sound intrusive and nosy. Thank you.
Questions for House?
Don't you think asking questions gives you clarity and a better and more refined learning experience?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Interjector. With the permission of the chair, I would like to answer. No, I do not think that asking questions helps us understand better, because a great part of education and learning is self-sufficiency and comprehending, and to have that is enough to understand things by yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Anira. I would now like to call upon Itash Bansal to speak against the motion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I put forth a question in front of all of you today. Was it the chicken that came first or the egg? Good afternoon to the house at large. I, Tash Bansal of Corner House, would like to present my views against the topic under fire today, which is, if you ask more questions, you will get into more trouble. I put forth my argument with these constructives. Now, the question that I asked all of you at the beginning of my debate made us all stop and think, didn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, these questions that we talk or debate about today is an unavoidable part of our lives. We cannot discard these major terms just because they cause us a little inconvenience in our lives. The second part of the topic states a word called trouble. Panel, we must take into view that these questions we ask do not cause us any trouble. But why, how, where we ask these questions causes us this trouble. Sensibility is all we need, ladies and gentlemen. A sensible, well-worded, thought-out question can never go unheard. This leads me to my first constructive argument, the Renaissance period, the birth of the word why. Let's keep the word sensibility in mind and go back into the timeline. Farmers face the abuse of landowners. Middle class people face the problems of bankruptcy at the hands of factory workers. The innocent face the accusation of crimes at the hands of priests. The world was in a turmoil, and then suddenly somebody questioned why. Why must you follow orders? What right do you even have to take away our lands? Why must I bear the punishment when I'm innocent? Panel, team proposition right here has painted a very bleak picture in front of us today. These questions that have been developing the world into what it is today have been deeply misconstrued by team proposition right here. I'm shocked and appalled at how questions have been blamed rather than seeing what's causing these problems. Somebody who doesn't ask questions at all remains a fool for life. Yes, somebody who asks questions sometimes is called a fool. This leads me to my next constructive argument. The entire thought process of these debates have been started from a single question. What is the topic? Have you understood the topic? Have you prepared? Are we ready? Ladies and gentlemen, these questions that have been so blatantly portrayed in a bad light are actually the boons that are so necessary in our lives. My fellow opponents have mentioned teachers getting irritated. Asking questions get you into trouble? I am sorry. Questions are the oil that keeps the wheel of the world turning, and it is imperative for human cooperation, productivity, and the balance of life. I would just like to end my debate by saying questions are meant to be asked, doubts are meant to be solved, and answers are meant to be known. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. Questions? Allen House.
Don't you think, Mr. Speaker, that when in British time, when you question the dictator, after that you get into trouble?
Thank you for your question. With the permission of the chair, I would like to answer this question. See, yes, we got into trouble, but after that, we got the freedom. That is much more important than that trouble. It was just for like to say 5 years, that trouble, and then we got the freedom. Thank you.
Pal House.
How can you say that a person who do not ask questions will remain a fool forever?
Thank you for your question. With the permission of the chairperson, I would like to answer this question. See, if you don't ask any questions, all we are left with is assumption, ladies and gentlemen. And assumption is a very dangerous game. If we do not get the assumption right, then we are left with failure. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Hitash. I would now like to call upon Naisha Sha to speak for the motion.
Children, copy questions A to D and answer them in your notebook. Ma'am, do we have to copy the questions? Yes, you do. I just said so. Where do I write them? In your notebooks? How do I write them? With a pen. Why should I write them? To avoid a trip to the principal's office. Believe me, dear audience, I truly understand that most of you want me to stop with these annoying questions and get on with my debate, right? Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, honorable judges, and my worthy opponents. Allow me to share the words of a very wise writer, Voltaire. He said, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. Today, it is my duty to prove to you that asking questions isn't bad, but asking them at the right time with the right intentions in the right manner can be a more rewarding experience as opposed to mindless questioning that can get you into hot water. As my first constructive argument, I would like you to focus on the student-teacher conversation I started with. The student in the conversation comes across as cheeky, lazy, annoying, and not inclined to study. In addition to the trip to the principal's office, he runs the risk of actually losing the teacher's respect for his questions and insights. That to me is bigger trouble than an interview with the principal or the headmaster. As my second constructive argument, I would like to use the age-old saying, curiosity kills the cat, as it underscores the potential dangers of unchecked inquisitiveness. Of course, curiosity is a natural human trait that drives exploration, but uncontrolled and indisciplined curiosity can be dangerous. Do you want to be called bumbling busybody, Mr. Question Mark, or question bomb by those around you? Do you want people to groan and moan each time you open your mouth because they fear the volley of questions you will release? Asking too many questions lets your friends, your teachers, your bosses know that you are impatient, nosy, insecure, anxious, attention-seeking, and disrespectful. With that kind of reputation, you are going to be in a pickle all of your life. Is that what you want? Opportunities will pass you by. People will avoid you. You are viewed as a reactive, not a proactive person. So the choice is yours. Be a solution provider or a problem creator. Did you hear about the big fight between Naisha and Anya? Have you noticed Aradhya has been behaving strange recently? I hear she's hiding something. What is it? Asking too many questions about someone's personal life is like setting off a gossip grenade in a crowded room. It's like setting off a gossip grenade in a crowded room. How can it land me into trouble, you might ask? And you must. It leads to damaged relationships, hurt feelings and misunderstandings. So be cautious. Curiosity kills the cat, but in this case, it definitely kills your reputation. If that is not trouble, I don't know what is. Albert Einstein asked many questions, but most of them were not directed at his teachers, but were thought within his mind. He gave the theory of relativity and the theory of light. He kept his curiosity focused on the cosmos, not the classroom gossip. As I conclude my debate, I would like the House to focus on my next few words. Ask questions like you are seeking the meaning of life, not just the Wi-Fi password. Thank you.
Thank you, Naisha. Questions? Content House?
As you mentioned in your debate, an example of a student. But what if that student doesn't know these answers to these silly questions? He wouldn't know these questions for life. Please comment on that.
See, even if you are asking silly questions, there should be a limit to them. If you keep on repeatedly asking these silly questions, teachers are not robots. They also have limits. They also get annoyed, and asking these insensible questions can aggravate them. Thank you.
Content House?
Madam Speaker, as you are in the favor of the topic that says the more questions you ask, the more trouble you get into. So we ask ourselves many questions to know the difference between the right and the wrong. Do you consider it trouble? Please comment.
As I said in my debate, asking questions isn't bad, and if you think there's a right and wrong, that's on you. Asking questions isn't bad, that's what I've said in my debate. But asking them in the right manner, with the right intentions, and at the right time can be more rewarding for you. If you mark them as right and wrong, well, that's on you.
Thank you, Naisha. I would now like to call upon Samar Eriksson to speak against the motion.
The art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thomas Berger. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, honorable judges, and my fellow opponents. My parents have always taught me how to ask questions, not because they bring trouble, but because they encourage exploration and discovery. The topic under fire clearly states that the more questions you ask, the more trouble you get into. As my first constructive argument, I would like to present evidence of how questions we ask of ourselves have led to the world benefiting from them. Researchers like Tim Berners-Lee questioned how information could be shared globally, leading to the World Wide Web. Edward Jenner, known as the father of immunology, gave us the smallpox vaccine, Louis Pasteur, the rabies vaccine, and Maurice Hilleman, over 40 vaccines for diseases like measles, hepatitis A and B, and chickenpox. Their inquisitive nature has saved countless lives and improved public health globally. For my next constructive argument, I would like to cite the recent parent-teacher meeting. During this meeting, teachers emphasized the importance of encouraging children to ask more questions or participate actively in class discussions. This approach aims to foster deeper understanding of topics covered in subjects like physics and maths. My worthy opponents have such a negative view of thinking or view of situations, contrary to labeling curiosity as trouble. I argue that asking numerous questions fosters valuable experience. Take the scenario of a person often reprimanded for asking questions excessively. Rather than viewing this as trouble, it should be seen as an opportunity for growth and learning. Therefore, what may appear as trouble to some is it is actually a pathway to personal development. That applies to detention as well. In conclusion, it is evident that my opponents need to rethink. Albert Einstein once said, "The important thing is to not stop questioning." Asking questions isn't about stirring trouble, but about pushing boundaries, seeking understanding, and ultimately paving the way for innovation and progress. After all, the quest for knowledge often starts with a simple why. With this, I rest my case.
Thank you, Summer. Questions? Powerhouse?
Don't you think that asking questions is sometimes beneficial for the person answering, as they might also learn from the questions that they might not know?
Can you please repeat? I don't quite understand.
Like if you're in a class and the children ask many questions, so sometimes some children also don't know the answers. So isn't it beneficial for you?
Would you like me to explain the question to you?
No, thank you.
Audience, please maintain silence.
Yes, I actually do think that's beneficial for the people who actually know the answer. But the children who don't know, they will obviously ask the teacher how the teacher explain obviously.
Allen House.
Mr. Speaker, if a person asks an insensible question at a wrong time, then how can you say that questions are not troublesome? Please comment.
Well, you see, the teacher or one who's supervising the children, they'll either make fun of that student or they'll directly answer that question with a joke or something. So it's basically not troublesome for them. If you're asking to continue sleep, then yes.
Thank you, Summer. I would now like to invite Scanda Chan to present her views for the motion.
Pay attention. The food from the stomach travels to the small intestine where digestion takes place. Ma'am? Yes, Sohan. Ma'am, can digestion take place in the lungs also? Sohan, do you think it can take place in the lungs? No, Sohan, no, it can't. Anyway, moving on, after writing the definition of stomach, note down these points. Ma'am, my page is finished. Can I move to the next page? Now, Sohan, how many times will you ask the same question? Of course you can. This is an example that depicts the annoyance and irritation felt by a teacher in the classroom. Good afternoon to the house at large. Today, I, Scanda Chan of Pal House, will be speaking for the motion that is, the more questions you ask, the more trouble you get into. As we know, everyone in this day and age are very busy in their own work. So they might find it frustrating to put a hold on their work to answer the many questions being asked. You will all agree that our parents, teachers, elders and even our friends get irritated when we
keep asking questions to them, which sometimes might be completely unnecessary. If you ask someone more and more questions, they might doubt you, as you are displaying your lack of trust, which hence can cause misunderstandings. It also displays one's laziness and inefficiency of finding answers to their own questions. It can also make you look annoying, especially if the questions are illogical. If one keeps on asking more and more questions, they will get into the habit of doing so and might ask questions somewhere or at some time they are not supposed to, due to which the judgmental society might think that he or she lacks knowledge and does not understand the sensitivity of time. My opponents today will say that asking more questions shows that a man is wise and curious. But relevantly speaking, the topic states the more questions you ask, which may involve illogical questions, which might get one into trouble. This behavior is also particularly prominent in children suffering with anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, traumatic brain injury, and autism spectrum disorder. Now, I would like to end my debate with a quote. Never ask a question. I repeat, never ask a question unless the answer makes a difference. Unquote. Anonymous. Thank you.
Thank you, Scanda. Questions? Gordon House?
As you mentioned in your debate that the person might have social anxiety or anxiety, but wouldn't asking questions to those persons would help the social anxiety? Please comment on that.
Thank you for the question. With the permission of the chair, the people who are asking questions to, they might be suffering from anxiety and all, but they know how to cope up with it, because as said earlier by one of my opponents, self-sufficiency is the best path. Thank you.
Allen House?
Madam Speaker, as you are in the favor of the topic, so I want to ask you, are you so intelligent that you never felt the need to ask questions to your teacher to clarify your doubts?
Please come in. Thank you for the question. With the permission of the chair, as I mentioned in my debate, that the topic states the more questions you ask, which may involve illogical questions. And yes, sometimes we do ask questions, but most of the times the questions might be unnecessary and illogical, which gets one into trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Scanda. We now have RISHIK against the motion.
Asking questions is the first way to begin change. Good afternoon to the chairperson, judges, and everyone gathered here. Today I, Anira Jwal of Panos, will share my views against the topic. The more questions you ask, the more trouble you get into. Ladies and gentlemen, just yesterday I assumed that evening runs were optional. However, today I got punished due to my assumptions. I realized that it was my mistake, because if I would have asked the question, I could have been easily stayed out of trouble. But how can asking questions help you? By asking, you're giving yourself the opportunity to get all the facts and information before you decide on a course of action. Asking questions can give you a better understanding of situation and can help you evaluate your pros and cons. Questions are useful tools. They give us information, improve interaction, allow us to propose our own ideas, stimulate motivation to learn, and it also increases your IQ level. And you can also gain knowledge by asking. Questions are essential in life because they drive curiosity, exploration, and growth. They help us gain knowledge, challenge assumptions, and uncover new perspectives. Questions encourage critical thinking, problem solving, and self-discovery, ultimately leading to intellectual development. purpose of asking questions is to emphasize and summarize what's important. Questions simulate discussions and critical thinking as well as determine how students are thinking. Questions help students retain material by putting them into words, otherwise unarticulated thoughts. Asking a lot of questions unlocks learning and improves interpersonal bonding. People who ask questions have higher emotional intelligence and a greater knowledge of the world around them. I would like to give an example from our school's co-curricular activities. Panel discussions which simulates curiosity and enable us to view situations from various perspectives. So, is the opposition trying to state that debates, quizzes and panel discussions are unimportant and in some illogical way are getting us into trouble? I suppose not. Here I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, RISHIK. Questions for House?
Asking questions means the listener was not listening to the speaker. Keeping that in mind, don't you think the listener is disrespecting the speaker and it means that the listener was not paying attention?
Thank you for your question. No, I don't think so. Because if you ask questions, they would love that you are asking them for something.
Allen House?
Mr. Speaker, for an introvert person, your questions may create discomfort. So, don't you think you are being inquisitive? Please comment.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Mr. Speaker, for an introvert person, your questions may create discomfort. So, don't you think you are being inquisitive? Please comment.
No, because they help them to clear doubts and they help them to gain knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, RISHIK. I would now like to call upon Shabad to speak for the motion.
One fool can ask more questions in a minute than 12 wise men can answer in an hour. Not my words. This was the opinion of Vladimir Lenin, the founding father of Soviet Russia, who went on to suppress all those who dared to question his style of governance. Questions can get one into trouble, a lot of trouble. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson and the House at large. Allow me to share some unflattering adjectives with you. Nosy, inquisitive, busybody, annoying. This is how people in general view those who ask too many questions. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your profession? Try asking a fellow passenger that too on a train or on a plane, and they are bound to tell you to mind your own business. Ask your elders why you need to listen to them, and they will tell you that it is either their way or the highway. Ask too many questions in class, and your classmates are sure to roll their eyes and view you as an insufferable know-it-all. Too many questions can make people feel uncomfortable. It is said that a person soon learns how little they know when a child starts asking questions. That is why when children ask questions, they are scolded by adults and are told not to disturb them. If we ask people in positions of power too many questions, they tend to think that we are disrespecting them or challenging their authority. They then retaliate by lashing out at us or punishing us in some way or the other. Soldiers who question the orders of their officers must face disciplinary actions. Employees in any office or organization who question the decisions of their boss are accused of insubordination. When writers, journalists, and filmmakers ask political, social, and religious beliefs through their books, articles, and films, they have to face criticism and a severe backlash. At times, lives are threatened. Salman Rushdie, Taslima Nasreen, Meera Nair, and Umesh Shukla are examples in point. Many of us keep on questioning our own abilities, judgments, decisions, and choices. We keep asking ourselves, what if I forget my lines on stage? What if I lose? What if I don't miss a goal in a match? What if people laugh at me? The more such questions we ask, the more we doubt ourselves. We then become stressed and anxious and miss out on many wonderful opportunities for growth and development. Ask no awkward questions and you will save yourself from learning the inconvenient truth. Ask no uncomfortable answers and you will receive no awkward answers. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, that there are many questions that are best left unasked. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Condon House?
You said in your debate that asking questions like what's your name is nosy. But if we don't ask these questions, how do we get to know each other and socialize?
Thank you for your question, Madam Interjector. With the permission of the chair, I would like to answer. I didn't say that we can't ask questions. I said the more we question, the more we get into trouble. If we ask a stranger his name, his profession, what he's from, he might get annoyed from you. Thank you.
Foy House?
Famous people like Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein asked questions. If they wouldn't have done that, have we as progressing humans would be in a lot of trouble? Your thoughts?
Thank you for your question. Like my opponent said that the questions that Thomas and Edison asked sensible questions, not silly or illogical. And if he asked questions, little questions, not more, and if we get answer more questions, and he got into trouble sometimes. So it proves our topic that the more we question, the more we get into trouble. Thank you.
I would now like to call Shatakshi to present her views against the motion.
Do you remember the first thing you said to your best friend? What's your name? Where are you from? Would you like to play? So, what led to the start of a lasting friendship? Questions. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, members of the jury, and my worthy opponents. What is one thing that every teacher asks us at the end of every lesson? Any questions? That is because the only way they can clarify our doubts is if we ask them questions. So, questioning is an efficient way of gathering information. Every great invention or discovery started with a question. Perhaps that is why Albert Einstein said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence." Questions are not limited to classrooms and are asked by everyone, everywhere. When people questioned the authorities in Europe, it led to the Renaissance. Great advancements were made in the fields of art, music, medicine, and astronomy, just to name a few. Also, the prolonged British rule ended in India when Indians questioned why the Britishers had snatched their freedom. Not everything we see, hear, or read is accurate. Questioning helps us to differentiate between the reliable and the unreliable sources of information. It also protects us from
decisions. Asking questions is one of the most important skills in life, whether you are a student, an employee, or a parent. By asking questions, we open up a dialogue between ourselves and others. It encourages collaboration and can help us to gain beneficial new perspectives. How would we know why a friend, a colleague, or a family member is upset? By asking them what is bothering them and how we can help them. So, questioning strengthens emotional bonds and human ties. Asking questions is not only important for social development but also for personal and spiritual growth. Deep philosophical questions help us to understand the meaning of and the purpose of life. As Gautam Buddha did, we often ask ourselves, am I doing the right thing? In the absence of questions, how will we learn the difference between the good and the bad, right and the wrong? I just made you think about that, didn't I? With this question, members of the jury, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Balhouse? Your Microsoft, can you please turn it on?
Don't you think that it shows that you are lazy and insufficient of finding answers to your own? No, I don't think that I'll be lazy and I'll be lazy to find my own answers, because I think that what if I find a wrong answer, and I think that the question should be answered by an elder because they are experienced and they know better than us. Thank you.
Golden House?
If the person you are asking these questions has social anxiety, then wouldn't it be too awkward and would cause trouble? Please comment on this.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Interjector. No, I don't think that a person who is an introvert and has social anxiety will feel discomfortable, because I'm just asking questions about themselves and it will make him or her feel special and valuable. And also, I just want to make good relations with him or her.